Welcome everyone back today for another Boca Ben live. Got a great guest, and he is
Sam Mendelsohn.
what's
Ben,
going
thanks
on.
for having me on.
No problem, no problem. We got a pretty juicy topic to discuss today.
It's
Yeah.
actually one that's very near and dear to what I do. So I'm actually gonna love this one tremendously because what do you even call this, you know?
It's like in the category of cancel culture.
Yeah.
I would
I
say,
mean,
or as people would say, accountability culture.
yeah, so it's definitely there. The interesting thing to me is like is almost like the outcome, like and we can talk about that in a second, but it's like now what happens to this organization, like he's like it's crazy. Like he's just forced to sell it on a dime. I don't think would you think he was planning on selling it?
So let's give a little backstory for people who are watching. Robert Sarver is the owner of the Phoenix Suns in the National Basketball League and the Phoenix Mercury in the WNBA, and he has he has been alleged, but I think he's admitted it, so it's not really alleged. So this is basically an agreement of facts that he had said the N word on multiple occasions. The context being recounting times that it had been said. In addition, there were also issues of, let's just use the blanket term, sexual misconduct related within the organization that he was responsible for owning and running. We could get into some more, but that's the gist of it. Okay, the big one is the racial slurs and um, gender
Like
inequality,
impropriety,
gender
yeah.
inequality, and
Yeah.
yeah.
So
So
so I guess like okay, so I guess can we agree that like it's not okay to do either ever?
yes, he agrees. There's no dispute of the facts. He agrees that what is being alleged is done. Right now, it's just a matter of the question is, does the punishment fit the crime, right?
Yeah. And like
So
it's a
yeah,
huge punishment, right? Like okay, so here's the thing. Like if an employee does this, okay, like let's pretend that Robert was like an employee, right? Like
yeah,
he goes, he doesn't own the company. He goes and he says, "Listen, like, you know, I did this, I said this. What's going to happen? They're going to fire him." Right? He lost his income and that's it. Is this so much worse? Like he's losing, like he's being forced to liquidate an asset.
yeah, right. So let's just to put it in his own words. So, firstly, when this came out, Adam Silver, NBA commissioner, it was decided that he'd be fined $10 million and serve a 1 year suspension. Okay, so that was the initial punishment. Um, and now we're going to talk about now it's basically like he's got to sell the team and it's over. So this is what he said in his own words. He said, "Words that I deeply regret now overshadow nearly 2 decades of building organizations that brought people together and strengthened the Phoenix area through the unifying power of professional men's and women's basketball." So he's regretful, he's remorseful, but I don't think it really matters at this point. Essentially, he has owned the team since 2004, right? And he's got to sell. So, in your opinion, does the punishment fit the crime?
Well, what changed? Like what went because like I mean, like the story hits and whatever, but like what changed from $10 million fine and 1 year to selling?
LeBron and Chris Paul.
Mm.
That's kind of my guess. Yeah, there was just too much player. I don't think there's any owner outrage really. I mean, I think the owners, are worried now that it'll happen to them too. Maybe they've made comments in the past. So I don't think it's coming from the owners. I think it's from the players, and they didn't think a 1 year suspension and a $10 million fine. $10 million fine is nothing. I think the 1 year suspension is way worse. Was not enough, and sponsors were pulling out. PayPal said they're going to pull out, and I think once the sponsors starting to pull out, it's kind of game over.
Yeah, because like now he's like it's almost like he's got like he's gonna have to make up the deficit somehow of all that, and it's just impossible. Okay, so now he's forced to like I mean, so he's really forced to sell it because they just kind of turned on him. So I guess I kind of go
Oh
back
wait,
to this.
we have our first
Oh,
question from someone named Sirota 2000. Does this devalue all other NBA teams? Great question. So, I mean, on the surface, listen, he's not he's doing well. He bought the team for, I think it was 400 million, and I've heard estimates of he can sell it for 1.8 bill. So like, no one's crying that he's going to have to sell this team with a huge cash, huge cash windfall. So, what do you think? Does it devalue other teams? I think his question is that the fact that you can have to sell your team so quickly, right? So does that devalue NBA teams that the owner's conduct is on such a short leash?
Yeah, or even, hey, I'm going to buy a team, but like maybe all my employees and my sponsors turn on me, and now I don't have a choice. I got to sell it immediately based on something that I did or said.
Yeah,
well, why don't we look at like other sports organizations? Like these kind of allegations have come out in football, right? Like the NFL and all that kind of stuff. I mean, has something similar happened there?
The only other case that I can think of is Donald Sterling and the LA Clippers, right? I can't think of an NFL owner that's had to sell. Can't think of an NHL owner. I mean, this seems like it's definitely more of an NBA issue than with other leagues.
Right? Because like there's been other allegations of misconduct and like all this kind of stuff in other teams. We can go kind of back to like Robert Kraft and all that kind of stuff, but like, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, let's look at if Austin Matthews is unhappy, like to some degree, the Leafs can tell him to go fuck himself, and it's not the end of the world for the organization, right? If your star player in your team says, I'm not playing for this team until the owner's gone,
yeah,
you're screwed. Like the players have so much more leverage in basketball, and that they have to give in. They have to do what they want.
So maybe it's more so that the players having what's really devaluing NBA teams is not necessarily this particular example, but the fact that the players just have so much more power over who the owner of the team is.
Right. But I think, maybe it needs to sort of be a two-way street. Like, for example, if we're going to say that 4 or 5 racial slurs and whatever, his whole resume of grievances, his punishment essentially like he's done for life, then, the next time a professional player has a domestic assault, domestic abuse or worse, maybe that should also be a permanent ban, right? I just think we're seeing the punishment being more severe for owners than players. And if the goal is to clean it up and to ensure that there's a safe space and community, then honestly, the next time I hear about a domestic abuse of a player hitting their wife or something, it should be done, right? It should be a permanent ban.
But I'll challenge you. Like in some cases, we have heard about that. How many times there's been a situation and the player actually does get a suspension. They get kicked off the team, whatever it is. I mean, not always, but sometimes it has happened, right? So maybe we are going into, like the blurring of personal and professional is just completely gone when it comes to anybody who's an influencer. Right. Yeah. Or anybody who's on a sports team or anybody who's playing in that realm, right? Where, the public opinion, the court of public opinion is just stripping people of their possessions and of their livelihood by the looks of it.
But it's also, I hear what you're saying. I think we got to think of like a chart. Like, isn't cheating worse? Like, shouldn't PEDs be like in baseball, you got a 80-game suspension for your first time? Isn't that worse? Like, than an owner, making racial slurs? Like, shouldn't that player be given a permanent ban? You know what I mean? We see so many cases where the integrity of the sport is jeopardized by cheating, and teams like the Astros. Shouldn't the Astros owner shouldn't he have to sell his team? Like, isn't that way worse?
Well, what about that entire team? Like, how are they all still playing? Yeah,
they're all
every
still
single
playing.
One of them.
Because the players' unions have a lot of power. Yeah.
Right? Like, actually, that's the more interesting thing. Like, that didn't, okay, fine. Like, what this guy did was bad. Like the player that, is charged with domestic assault, terrible. It doesn't impact the game. It doesn't impact the like the ethics or the morality or anything. Like, it doesn't impact the game itself. However, if you've got the Astros and these guys cheated, I mean, they cheated. How can you have any of these guys back on your team again? Like, how can they be allowed to play the sport ever again? Any of them?
And nothing happened to Jim Crane, the owner. Zero. Like,
zero.
He got his championship and he's laughing. And he's probably looking at Robert Sarver and being like, holy crap, like, I just cheated and won the World Series and nothing's going to happen to me. So,
oh my God, like if I have to be risky about something, forget being risky about, this or that or whatever. Let me be risky about cheating in the game.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make any sense. And and just to sort of use it as in another example, like let's say Jeff Bezos, I mean, he's not the CEO anymore, but let's say if he was, said the exact same thing, did the same thing, is like some sort of SEC or regulator going to force Jeff Bezos to sell his company? So like, why is it only in the sports world? Like when you see publicly traded CEOs or companies, there's no sort of repercussions except in the sports world.
Well, I mean, it's an interesting thing because like usually your customers are the ones that are determining how much money you're bringing in, right? Like they're your revenue base. Okay.
Yeah.
The challenge in this world is twofold. Number one, it's your sponsors. So yeah, it's kind of your revenue, but like these guys are making up a significant amount of your cash inflow, right? And the second thing is your employees are going to refuse to come to work. And you can't replace these employees. Like there are star players, you can't just turn around and say, well, I'll fire the whole team and, like bring in the D League. Like that's not going to do anything for for the guys sitting in the seats. Right. So it's so interesting. I mean, Jeff Bezos, yes, he could do whatever he wants. People are still going to go shop on Amazon and he's just going to turn around and say, well, they like my product.
Yeah.
So
I'm really curious where the fans stood on this issue. If the fans wanted the owner to sell, because that's right. Like that's a big factor. Like obviously some sponsors were feeling the heat, but did the fans like, I don't know, like was he a very liked owner or was he not a liked owner? Not really sure if that plays a big part in that decision.
I mean, he's not one of the more controversial ones anyways, right? Like, I think the Brooklyn Nets, he's way, way more out there. So yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah. Again, and is there a double standard? If this happened to Mark Cuban, would people be as pissed off as everyone kind of likes Mark Cuban? I don't know. Okay, we only have 5 minutes left, so we could talk about Robert Sarver and the Phoenix Suns. And this is the story that keeps on giving. The sort of like joke of the whole thing is like his punishment is he's going to clear over $1 billion. That's his punishment. So that's what he did. That's the crime he committed, and his reward is going to be probably $1.4 billion reward for making those comments and treating women the way he did. So there's justice. Okay, Sam, tell us, what do you do?
All right. So yeah, that's a great question. So I'm the president and the CEO of a company called the Value Builder System. We help business advisors find, win, and keep their best clients through our sales and marketing software. The cool thing and how it actually relates to this entire story is we help advisors talk to business owners about the value of their business. We help them understand, protect, realize, and grow that value in their business. And so the interesting thing is that what Robert did over the course of his time that he was owning the Phoenix Suns was really increasing the value of that business. That's why it went from 400 million to 1.8 billion. The funny thing is that he didn't know when he was going to have to sell. I think that, if he woke up, whatever, a couple months ago, and you asked him, hey, you plan on realizing all that value that's sitting inside the Phoenix Suns? He would have said, no, I'm going to hold on to the team and I'm going to keep on going. And this obviously comes out and, find 10 million in a year and then turns into like, oh man, I got to sell this thing because if not, I'm going to lose all this value. He actually, he's for what it's worth, he's a pretty good entrepreneur and he's a pretty good creator and protector of value because he was able to go harvest, and he's going to end up harvesting it. So to your point, he's going to make 1.4 billion off this thing. And if he kept it, maybe he would have made more.
Yeah. Obviously, no one wants to be forced to sell like that. Like, but
it's a funny thing because most business owners at the end of the day, what ends up happening to them, they get divorced, there's disability, they have a disease that hits them, they have a disagreement with their business partner, or death, and the family's left with nothing. So it's an interesting thing that at all time a business owner must be on the heel, ready to just kind of drop the ball and sell the business.
And so your software, you help sort of determine the asset values. And can that make recommendations on, hey, it's a good time to sell, not a good time to sell?
It's not really, hey, it's a good time to sell or not a good time to sell. What we have is we have this thing called a value builder score, and it's based on what what we've determined, what our founder John has determined, is 8 key drivers of company value. And so we weight each owner on each one of those 8 key values of 8 key drivers of company value, and they can work with their advisor, our customer, to actually increase those 8 key drivers so that at the end of the day, they have a business that is valuable, regardless of whether they want to sell it or run it, because it's just going to run better and they're going to be a lot happier doing it.
Yeah. So a good sort of analogy is this kind of like, the way your credit score is monitored and tracked.
Yes, absolutely. It's exactly it. It's a beautiful analogy. I might steal it from you, Boca.
Start with that. It's kind of like your credit score. Like, every single banking app or credit card app you have, right? I don't know if it's the same in Canada, but all the ones in the US, they all track your credit score. So you can check your credit card bills and then it shows you your score that goes up or down.
That's right. That's exactly it.
Awesome. Okay, so we're just about out of time. So can you let everyone know where's the best way to find you?
The best way to find me is on LinkedIn, and you can look me up at Sam Mendelsohn on LinkedIn, and happy to talk to anybody. Thanks for having me, Ben.
No problem. And what's the company website?
Company website is Value Builder, all one word, valuebuilder.com.
Valuebuilder.com. Okay, check it out. It's a great way to monitor your business's value and much more, right? There's way more features that we're not even talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
See everyone tomorrow.
All right. Bye.